Hello and welcome to Decorate It. My name is Mary and this is Wes, and tonight is episode 33. We're talking about trims, which I kind of wanted to discuss trims in general simply because they're a easy way to add character and customizations to basic one color threads or your grips or a whole plethora of things that we can put trims into. I do want to take a minute and say yes, I am sick. It came back full force this morning. And we are both drinking a medicine toddy to try to keep me from coughing. So if there is some coughing fits, I apologize. I am just not at my best, and hopefully the voice holds up. So, trim bands. What kind of trims do you actually like to see, whether it's in thread or it's in grips or like even the highlights and the peekaboo and the real seats and things?
Simple.
What do you mean by simple? What is simple?
Like if you have more work in your trim bands than you do anything else, I think you have done too much, personally.
Well, what do you mean?
So like you have, say, guide wrap. I'm talking about 1 foot. You have a single, double, a triple, a saw blade, a triple, a double, a single, and then the wrap of the guide. That, to me, that's too much because I like short, sweet, to the point.
So you're saying like if all of that is at the before it starts to climb the foot. Okay. I was like, well, a lot of people do it like as it goes up the foot.
Up the foot is fine.
You're saying don't add the length.
Like if you add another half inch to your guide wrap or your trim to add in all these details, to me, you're doing too much.
I think it's just, well, I mean, if you're going to speak it in that way where you're adding that much extra in front of the guide foot, it's just adding unnecessary epoxy and stiffening in that area and length. Like,
I think it's just unnecessary, period.
It just doesn't need to be that long. But climbing the foot and doing all that, I'm going to say you're crazy because that is so hard to do and keep those lines like legit straight up and down. And there's actually a few examples of what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Not the lengthening, but it going up the foot and looking at how much work went into how many trims is on there and everything's staying straight. And you don't, because I don't know if anybody else has experienced this in some guide feet. If you don't sand them down to shape or whatever, you can have thread that likes to do this little lean thing and then like starts to straighten back up. And if you're trying to do those trims where the thread's leaning and then you're trying to get it to go straight back up, it's just a packing nightmare. Hence why we like to prep our guide feet if you're going to be doing all that.
Sorry, I hit the bottom.
You good?
Oh.
Trying to knock out these colds. But
that was a lot of whiskey.
Is it? Did it all settle?
Oh, yeah. It settled. My ears be bright red tonight.
Oh man, I wonder if you got all the whiskey and I just got all the citrus stuff. I guess we'll find out when I get to the bottom. Anyways, I like to see trims and stuff whenever on anything, because to me, trim work is the framework of like your initial thing. So like, let's say on a tie off, having a couple extra trims, it doesn't matter what the trims are. It could be just a couple like a single thread. It could be two different colors of thread or band, like a band of a single color thread or a couple more, or like doing some fades into it. But that kind of creates a framework for just a solid one color kind of look, if you will. I like to see it, especially on grips. Like every single one of my grips, which I didn't put any of my work in tonight because the Southern Rod Builders went hardcore on throwing a whole bunch of options in tonight, which is awesome. But we have 132
There's
photos.
A lot to go through.
132 photos for you guys to get a bunch of inspiration from. We won't be dissecting them as much as we normally do because there's so many of them. So, but trims on like grips and the little thin line things, like one of my favorite things to do is maybe we're doing like red, yellow, and orange on like the trims. And typically, if you're not going to do it like a fade in through them, but you're just doing bands of it, it actually looks really good for you to do like your yellow and then have a black single thread and then the red and a black single thread and then the orange and a black single thread. Or if it goes into a black wrap, then you don't have to do the single, obviously. But what that does is that actually breaks up those colors and makes it look sharper. Tom Kirkman has one of the rod makers, he has a whole, like little, what are they called? Little write-ups on outlining What?
What are they called? What are they called?
What are they called? What is the book called? But it's a whole write up on outlining your work and giving each thing depth. And I believe a couple years ago when we were doing question of the day, one of those topics was about the outlining and like before and after. So it's somewhere in the Southern Rod Builders group. I'd have to go find it, and I'll have to bump it back up to the top to show you what I'm talking about. But I thoroughly enjoy trims. I think it blends everything together, and it kind of gives you a way to obviously personalize it and play around with different thread inlays, whether it's, bands or fades or the sawtooths and the olive branches and, all these things that we can do, or the two colors going side by side. I think trims is way one, we can show our characters as custom rod builders, or like a unique personality as far as like what we put on there, because everybody's different. You can tell 5 different builders to do red, white, and blue and figure out a way to do trims, right? They're all going to do it differently because they all have their own different way of doing things, their own style. So there's no way other than us sitting down and going, okay, we're going to do 5 things of red with a black outline, and then, unless we literally tell each other what we're doing, nobody's going to do it the same way. They're just going to come up with a different way. It could be one of each, whatever. So.
My favorite way to do trim bands?
What?
Black on black.
Yeah, you don't do them. You're like a solid guide, solid thread, or solid color for your all your stuff. Actually, you don't. You do not. You just do solids every single time.
You ask me to wrap a guide, it will be solid. I will not do trim bands.
You did. Actually, no, you're lying on yourself. You did one of my guides on the, what was it? It was one of the customers' rods that we're working on. I had 2 guides left, and you came in and you wrapped one of them for me, and it had a trim on it.
That was just me being your husband. That's not me wrapping guides, though.
You were wrapping guides.
That was like literally just a, hey, I'm going to help you out. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done it.
But still, you did it. So
still,
you're still lying. If you had it your way, it's going to be solid.
Solid colors.
If I had it my way, I'm going to put every color I can into it.
Solid colors. That's why I've got you in this. Just plain and boring. One color. That's what you get.
I'm high maintenance.
And I'll alternate colors like black, white, green, red, yellow, but it's going to be one color.
Oh.
That's also why I bought those variations threads.
I don't like to work with those variation threads. And it's because I don't know when that color's going to slap down.
That's the whole point of it.
I hate it. I like to have more control over it. Sometimes it looks okay. I've only done one wrap, and that was back when I was in the beginning, where I used that purple and gray. No, it was purple and pink variations thread, and mixed it in with like the grays or something, and that one actually turned out okay. But still, it was like, I don't like where these colors are falling because I didn't have control over where it fell. Let's get into the pictures because there's so many of them tonight. And like I said, there's so much inspiration. We're not going to go major in depth on any of these because there is so many of them, but they're all very, very interesting and unique. We're going to start with Abby first. And this is just a great example of like the simpler kind of spaced out trims where they're just kind of breaking up the solid in the middle of the, I think that's burgundy and gold. Another one of Abby's. We had quite a few people tonight put in like, I think Abby has like 20 something photos in here. She just has a lot of great, just different styled inlays, whether they're broken up or just a very traditional single. I think single trims are also really, really nice. Along with, different colored ones going back and forth. These are the ones I tend to like to do, kind of give it a little bit of personality. Now, this one is actually, she's got some trims on here, but I want you guys to pay attention more to her winding checks. So you see that the winding check's 2 different colors, right? This is something that I never would have thought to do. She actually stacked 2 winding checks together to create a 2-toned color. So I thought that was really nifty. First off, I've never seen one in the color that's that smaller one. So I'm going to have to be like, hey, where are you getting your stuff? Are you having it custom painted or anodized?
I bet we could find that easily.
Oh, I'm sure we could find it. I just never thought to look for it, And then this is another example of, obviously, the green and the I guess that's gold, has the trims in it, but these are acrylic winding checks that are also mixed into the mix with the cork also having breakup in it too. So it's a lot of trims and inlays and little individual pieces that kind of break up the work. Very simple. This one is also, I think this one's wood winding checks that she's got. So she's not even necessarily always using thread to make hers. She's using winding checks to kind of create that look that typically that darker color on the winding check would be thread. She's using wood or acrylic. I can't remember which one it was. Another example. I always do enjoy looking at her thread work. She's always got some clean looking stuff and funky. Like, to me, I wouldn't do that many inlays because I'm lazy when it comes to that kind of stuff. I hate doing little simple inlays like that. A wrap, I'll do kind of crazy stuff. Thread inlays, not doing it. It's too much for me. Ain't that weird?
A little bit.
I do all this other crazy stuff, but these inlays, I'm like, nah, I'm not doing that. Another nicely done. That one, she's got a separation in between one of the pinks. And then with this is kind of one of those freeform wraps where she's put all these different colors into the wrap and like everything's outlined and got all these different trims, if you will, inlays. This one's a very classic, simple. That's more my style when it comes to these kind of things because it's easier to do and it's cleaner for me. I'm not good with the multiple ones. Another great example of just breaking up that big blue space with a lot of different single individual color inlays and sawtooths, I believe. It's hard to see with the metallic. Another one on the ferrule. And I think it's funny that she always shows us her dirty side. I mean, it's pretty dang clean.
Mm-hmm.
Another nicely done trim. Sawtooth again.
Looks like it's on a ferrule, too.
Mm-hmm.
That's about the only time I would accept a little bit longer of a wrap is to tie it into the ferrule.
Yeah, because you don't want to have that, like, break, you know? Another classic looking one. And so for me, even with this style, what I would do is like the bottom section would have like maybe let's say it's 5 passes, and then I'd shrink it as it got to the top, just because I'm weird like that. But it doesn't, like, this looks good too. You can, and it's always a nice way to like have it as a matching set, like, you know, that goes together. Simple. What is that? 2 passes.
Right at the edge of the guide feet.
Yeah. Another classic looking one. Check out all this hardware. That caught my eye more than the inlay the thread did. I was like,
Yeah, it's an Alp seat.
Yeah, I think so. It's kind of nifty. Another one of her, like, the Galaxy theme one that she did. This one's a pretty classic, just a single or a couple passes in there. More trims. Bill Goings putting in a different colored wood into... I can't, he told me what they were, but like single different colored wood into a darker one. The different version of that same thing. I can't remember. I think it was like redwood and blackwood or something. Brought to be wraps. Nicely done with the trims. I like this because it breaks up all of the pink and gives it a little bit of ties everything in.
And thank you for actually centering that.
You're welcome.
No, I'm talking about his
Oh, I know.
trims.
Right? Okay.
I can't. If it's not centered on the under wrap, I can't.
There's that one thought process where it has to be under the foot, like, or the
Under
eye.
the ring.
The ring. It has to be under the ring.
It has
Look
to
at
be
me.
centered.
I don't like it to be just under the ring because then it looks like
I know there's no rules in rod building, but my eyes can't look at it being centered under the ring.
I'm a symmetrical kind of kid too. Brian Ward, this is what I call like the classic guide wrap, honestly, with the single colored on the end, little funky inlay, which is basically just a couple colors. Brian Ward again, simple, classic, clean. Another one of Brian. So this is that what's that thread called? It's not the variations, it's the one that Pro Wrap has. It's the 2 colored one.
I can't remember the name.
Yeah, but it's that wrapping it side by side. Looks kind of zebra-ish. Makes it for a fun little trim. Chase. This one's a nicely done one. A lot of trim on the under wraps. And a lot of times, I don't know if some of you guys know this or not, but I always used to question this because I couldn't figure it out. I always knew there was an under wrap. But I didn't put 2 and 2 together that the purple or the fuchsia with the yellow and the gray was all one big piece that ran under it. And then like that purple, white, and fuchsia on the top was the over wrap. So that it's a way for you to add the trims into it.
Maybe it's not.
As a solid. No, it's sitting on under. I mean, he could have done it piece by piece, and but
I'm just messing. You can see where.
typically you can. That's usually how it's done. Took me forever to figure that out. Another one of Chase's. That's a lot of thread. It looks great. It's very sharp. But this is what you were saying that it extends.
It's just too long for me. It looks great, and as long as the customer's happy, who really cares?
Well, and if that's actually
But
if that's the stripper, it's not bending there, so it really
just for me,
it doesn't matter.
it's too long for me.
We like to keep ours short, sweet, and right there. Chris Stanton, all these trims on this ice fishing rod grip. I just enjoy looking at his grips. All the different trims and especially when he's got the tiger wraps on them. Looks so good. Another one of Chris Stanton's. Adding in the trims from the tiger to the grip. And another one with the cork. Very nice, very nice. This one more highlighting the trims going into the actual trims on the rod. The next 3 photos are just a cute thing. This is obviously an awesome build, but Chris obviously built this for his son who was born. So this is him pictured with it in the hospital, and I wish we had thought to do this, because how adorable is this with the toddler holding it now?
My question is, how to get it in the hospital?
Right? How'd you get that?
They'd have chewed us up one side and down the other had I brought that in the room.
But this is just adorable. And now he's got literally a fishing rod he's had since he was born. And, Dad built it for him. So that's pretty cool. Another example of some trims and doing some fades. Okay. Thank you, Christopher, for attaching notes on your pictures of the things that you did, so that I wouldn't have to go flipping through notes and remember this and forget what it was because I didn't write it down. So Chris actually pulled the string from the inside of the paracord. So he gutted paracord, and there's white nylon threads that are on the inside are a little bit thicker than rod building thread, and that's what he used to wrap around it to kind of create this rope look. Another one where he's got a brass fitting that he found from Home Depot. He sanded it and polished it, and that's what that piece is right there that he's got the arrow pointing it to.
Very nice.
Very nice. And then obviously he's got trims up there on his tie off as well. Another one where he's got white holly inlay, white ebony, and then black palm put together. The grip's great. Also thread work on that tie off or a little trim section. I can't see if there's a wrap there or not, but all nice. David Alexander. So he wanted to put this one in here because he knows it's your favorite team.
Negative Ghost Rider.
He's doing that as funny. So, zooming in, nice little trims here at the bottom. And obviously the same up at the top. Another one of David Alexander. So this one is a Steelers rod he built. And this one, he did want to point out that all of the decals, all the Steelers stuff is actually fingernail stuff. So every bit of it came from fingernail art. But he does have trims on his guide wraps. And he put one other sticker on one of the other ones as well. Garrett Honecker.
That looks like Stingray.
That looks like Stingray. And I want to focus down here on this abalone section. Like, that's really nice. And then in his next photo, this is the beginning part of it, where he's taking that abalone and he's cut that into little individual rectangles and placed that in there, and then put his thread work right in front of it and made that into like a epoxy ramp. Like, this is a really cool grip. Like, that's pretty. I like it. I like it a lot. Another one of Garrett Honecker is just a very nicely done guide wrap with a bunch of trims and inlays and things of that nature. Also,
on the guide foot.
Yeah, they're all on the guide foot. Zoom in to appreciate it because the epoxy makes it really hard to see. Like, for me, that style guide wrap, I would absolutely want to shoot myself in the foot to do. I know how to do it, but I would be so mad the entire process. So I don't ever put myself in that position to do that kind of stuff. But for those that do, mad respect. Gary Durkee coming in with that awesome snake rod that we've seen, highlighting the trims that were on the outside edges of the snakeskin. Obviously, trims don't have to be individual, broken up, tiny little threads or anything of that nature. They could also just be one big band, if you will. Another one of Gary Durkee's. You can see he's work in progress getting the guide wrap on there. He's done all the inlays and thread work on that. Greg Thompson. So, it was funny. I wish I had kept the original photo because it tripped me out, but I decided to edit it out because I knew it was a mistake. But something happened up with the upload or how he took the photo, and you see where the hook keeper is? It duplicated the hook keeper right behind it in that section where I cut it off, and it has the swoop. So it looked like he had cut the cork out and scooped it down, put another inlay with a second hook keeper in it, right? And I was like, the hell, how did that happen? But then when I started looking at the objects above, like this towel was stretched out and something else was going on. So I was like, oh no, this is just a funny photo. But it seriously tripped me out when I saw it. This one, it's really hard to see, but this is Greg Thompson's down here at the bottom. The metallic trims and thread work that was on the tie-off. That whole wrap was metallic. Greg Thompson for these bronze colored copper thread. Like, I really like that color. I need to build a neutral rod. I keep saying that, but I never end up doing that.
Because you keep getting these wild builds.
Yeah, I keep getting asked for,
Crash Bandicoot.
beer cans, Crash Bandicoot, and hot dogs. And I'm here for it.
Or Third Special Forces.
Which that one's coming together nicely. And the Navy vet one, with the boiler tech, like that one was a really nice rod, I thought. Anyways, off of me. More trim inlays around here with the hook keeper over this nice spiraled wrap, which the spiraled wrap you could also say has got trims on it too with the outside edges of it. Yeah, trimmed it out. Greg Thompson again coming in with a silver for the outside and then purple and like that fluorescent yellow color. Another one of Greg's similar style guide. This one he actually wrapped under it, or at least put a band of silver on that other side to poke out a little bit more. Greg Thompson with a simple trim right at the beginning of the hook keeper. Greg Thompson again. So these are really, really hard to see, but in the hot pink kind of thread, I'm guessing it's a yellow toned, but you could just barely see that there's some kind of thread work there. And Greg Thompson again, the rod in the back, we've got the yellow and the red. And then trims again down at the bottom of this one. I think this one's just a different angle of that other one we just saw, but I couldn't tell, so I just went ahead and put it in there. We have quite a bit by Guillaume. Right? Guillaume, sorry. Look at the insane thread work on these things. We're going in from like wraps to the first guides. That's a bigger picture of that, so it's the wrap going into the stripper just like it would if it was a decorative wrap instead of a fade wrap. He put everything in the under wraps for these. And here's a work in progress of those. And then trims going up on the foot. Well, on the foot, and then in between them. That one's before, I think that's the same photo before epoxy. Very, very clean work. We got a metallic trim at the edge of this one with orange broken up in the middle. And in my situation, the trim would be like that single line of orange going on the outside of one of those saw blades.
Mm-hmm.
More single trims and doubles.
And triples. Or quadruples.
Another very cool section of inlays.
That's a good picture of how those are made.
Yeah. And this is a great example of what I was talking about with the black. So you see how they've got the single thread on the outside, single thread of black on the outside of the red, frames the yellow and then the red, and it breaks all those colors up. If you can imagine it without the black, it wouldn't stand out as much,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of the outline thing. Another one with the single thread of the orange with the saw blades on each side of the dragon scale. This was really nice. Just simple. I mean, the wrap itself takes all the attention, so in my opinion, like I do most times, if the wrap is going to be really loud and bright and has multiple axes like that, it's a good idea to kind of tone the tie-offs down just a little bit, or trims. That's just how I operate. Doesn't mean that's everybody's style. Another good close-up of his work. This one was his flame tip one that he did for the olive branch or the saw blade. And I thought that was the coolest thing, to just put the little tip of yellow on the outside to make it look like a flame. So if you guys start doing flamed saw blades or fire blades, if you will, credit him. I don't know how to say his last name. It's Del Puech, or I know I'm butchering it. It's Delpuech.
Delpuche.
Delpuche. You went to Italy. I didn't.
I don't know. I'm just guessing.
That
Yeah,
sounds
poosh.
right. Jim Bowers, nice trims on the outside edges with the fade on the over wrap. Like he's got the trims also kind of over top of the dragon scale underneath. And then we've got the Mahi tone colors for this one, where he's done a bunch of different color fades and shading and stuff, and then he's trimmed it out with a couple simple colors at the edges. Once again, a lot of thread work and trimmed out with the edges and stuff with the green, black, and yellow, and kind of balanced everything out by replicating the green also on the inside. Jim Lew's red on the outside, white, black going into the wrap. That's very classic, very clean, looks good. Same thing with this one. True trims bands at the edge where it's blue, gray, black, goes into the over wrap, and then repeats back on the other side. And you can see down at the bottom there's a little bit that looks like metallic on the bottom. Great example of more trims. Single blue metallic on the outside of that guide wrap. Fun photo, by the way. You guys that are using those editors, this looks good. I like the fireworks behind it. Another one of Jim's. This is kind of what is a classic kind of style where you've got like the single trims going over the guide feet with a little bit of pizzazz underneath the under wrap, but the bigger bands on the outside, like 5 turns or something like that. I would always see this on a lot of people's surf rods when I first started.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what they were doing. That's the reason why I call it classic. I don't really know if it's classic. Another one of Jim's, which I love that he took this photo on top of bubble wrap. I love it. But you got silver with the trim band being on the inside of the guide, like right at the frame. So that's a different take on what most people wouldn't do. But I actually like that. I like to do it on both sides, and it just makes it look balanced, if you will. But that's different, and I like that. Another one of Jim's where we have the metallic beginning, couple trims. Looks good. This is Joe Haywood from HFF. And these are some nice little singles and going into the saw blade. Everybody's doing that saw blade now, aren't they?
Yup.
It's balanced really nicely with that tiger. Another one of Joe's. He did a fade for his trim going into that multicolored tiger. Another one of Joe's. This is really pretty metallic color with this gold kind of mixed in there. And it looks like there's black thread on the outside, but that's just the epoxy hitting the blank. John Suchin. This one is just what we call color blocks. Bigger chunks of bands, breaking it up. Easy peasy, looks good. It breaks up what he's done with the tiger. I think it's the tiger that's underneath there.
Looks that way.
And because it's bold chunks, it actually looks better than it would if you had a bunch of tiny little single things to compete with that. John Suchin again. If you guys don't remember John Suchin, he's the one that did all the Halloween characters for the weaves. And he also does amazing trims and inlays and stuff when he frames the weaves as well. Another one of John's. Had to put his name in the middle of his wrap. There was no other room to put it. I didn't want to cover up the abominable down there at the bottom. See him peeking?
The what?
Abominable snowman. What?
Say that again.
Abominable snowman. What?
Isn't it abominable?
I don't know.
Or is it abominable?
You just said the same thing twice.
I can't
It's probably abominable.
I can't force myself to say abominable.
It's just what came out. Leave me alone.
Abominable.
He's the snow guy from.
I know who he is.
Rudolph.
I remember that video vividly.
I know. I watched it every year at Christmas.
On VHS.
John Suchin. I actually appreciate the trim work in this one now. That's a sexy little fish. I like that. And that single thread on that upper section where he's got just a trim up there. That's very nice too. Joshua Kennedy. I was really happy to see him posting some photos because he does some pretty good work. We've got like the silver edge with a lot of the attention on the under wrap in between the guide feet. And then classic trims at the beginning and the ends of the guide. Same thing with this one. We've got trims at the beginning and the end as well. Ferrule wrap with a bunch of trims and inlays put into it. Josh again coming in with that kind of classic kind of guide wrap. Like for me, once you start wrapping guides pretty often and you're doing them over and over again, you kind of fall into a pattern of this is how your stuff's going to work. Makes it a lot easier when you're designing it instead of coming up with a brand new thing every time. So Joshua Kennedy again. I have to zoom in for us to actually be able to appreciate this. He's done a lot of inlay work and thread work on this stuff for the stripper. And then he fades it out to, it appears to be just a solid black, which...
Green. Or is it black?
Yeah, I think it's black. I think it's black.
Zoom in.
Zoom in more.
Zoom in.
See, that's black. That's black and yellow and gold.
Yep.
So I think it is just, he's gone to straight black up here. But I don't know. He might have an inlay, but I don't see anything. I would have gone straight to black too. Yeah, it looks like he went straight to black. I would not have carried that much of inlay work all the way up the rod, even though this would be the style rod that you would have room for it. Another one of Josh Kennedy's. This is just a lot of inlay work along with trim, the one trim at the end. This looks really nice butted up against the real suit right there with the threads. I was so happy he threw this in there because we can obviously trim out our EVA grips too. This is what I should have got some of mine put in here, but with 132 photos, I just was like, what's the point? But having trims on the edges, especially what we call the caps, if you will, where we cap off what we're working on with a trim, that is the framework. That's what I was trying to kind of, with this one, yep, blah, 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 blah. My mouth is not working.
Jaja Binks.
Jaja Binks has got a cold. The green with the black on the edges is what kind of frames that whole inner piece together. We've seen this grip before. That's the one that Bill Going did, but Justin Schaefer is showcasing his trims with the olive branch, or what I call the deer track.
Yeah.
But he actually, I like what he did because he's got a red on the inside of that too.
Kind of makes me think of feathers.
Mm-hmm. So that's a cool little additive to, put a red one on the inside. Larry McPherson. I thoroughly enjoyed him sharing this one because this is like one of those classic old school wood handles that have all the little lines and stuff in them. And he's decided to put thread work on it. And in those little cavities is put thread for the trims. And then he's found this awesome hook and made it look like it was on the thread, hanging off the thread.
Pika.
Oh yeah, Pikachu's in the background. Pika. But this is a cool way to add trims without cutting it apart.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of, if you got a wooden grip, just make some little edges, or what's the word I'm trying to find, cuts into it, and you can just fill it with thread.
That looks like one of those Archie's cedar grips.
Mm-hmm. Lori.
Thank you, Lori, for centering.
She always does. The aesthetics for the background of this photo, first off, I enjoy it. It's like, but it's all black, so it doesn't really draw your attention away. It just gives it like texture. But this is a great example of the trims at the edges where she's done. It's not really a fade. This is kind of what I call modified fades. It's a blending technique where you go from the lightest and then you mix in the second one and then you keep going until you get to your main. And that's another type of trim that you can do, and it goes really fast. It's a lot less pull-throughs doing it that way. Another version of that for Lori. Once again, mixing colors, trims out. It just adds some character to an otherwise just single-colored guide
Are
wrap.
you trying to say my wraps are characterless?
I am. They're very plain Jane, not very decorated. You gotta live the life you preach.
I do decorate it.
No, you give me the idea and make me do the decorating.
Exactly.
That's not the
I
same.
decorate it.
That's not the
I
same.
just plant the seed.
Not the same. Very nicely done. Awesome modified olive branches. I don't even know what to call these.
It kind of makes me think of the fletching on arrows.
Yeah. Like it's very much, it's like a faux oh crap,
Or dart.
I forgot the name of what are my favorite feathers to work with? Grizzly hackle. When I laid it around on the rod, when I trimmed it out on that weave I did, that's kind of what that reminds me of.
Yeah.
Or little, like, I don't know, it kind of looks like little teeth. I like that. I like that a lot. I think that's really creative, Lori. Lori again, simple, clean bands at the beginning, and then going into the trim work and inlays at the underneath the guide foot. Lori again, this is her watermelon wrap. So she started off with a solid and then goes to fade, which is super hard to fade from the over wrap into the under wrap. But she did it very, very nicely. But I originally thought that she just dotted these little black seeds on there. That's not paint. She's done little itty bitty little olive branches on that to make the seeds. So I kind of wanted to highlight that. I know that's not what we're talking about tonight, but that's actually really, really, really cool.
I still think she painted it.
It's not paint. Do you need me to zoom in further?
I mean, sure.
See? That's thread.
It's paint.
That's not paint. Lori coming in with some Juma grips. So she wanted to point out that the white at the bottom, before it runs into the burl, is a G10 spacer. And that is the trim work in this. And that is just breaking that up is what really brings that whole set together, in my opinion. I legit thought it was paint. Like, I thought she just painted it on there. I was like, I totally would have done that.
If you hadn't zoomed in, I wouldn't have believed you.
If I hadn't put her name on there and her picture was so big, because, like, I was typing it in and I was like, wait a minute. She did an olive branch. Look at you doing olive branches under there. I had to highlight that because that was tricky. I would have taken the easy way out. She took the hard. I would have painted it. She took the hard. She did the hard
here,
way.
Dot there, dot. Okay,
Yeah.
we're good.
Boom, we're done. Like, I've done it in 5 seconds. Another one of Lori's. I love Lori's grip work. This is up here. You see the brass color with the white. So the white is a G10 spacer, and I believe she said it was brass, but it's a brass plate that she's cut and added in there.
Very nice.
Very, very nice. Mixing materials is not for the weak, especially not for weak tools, right?
Yeah, you better sharpen them.
It's not even that. You gotta have the right ones. Don't be trying to turn that stuff with a wood turning skew. It's not gonna work out in your favor. Ask us how we know. I just want to point this out too. Like, even though she was highlighting the G10 and the brass, like even the inlay work with the cork, like all those little trims and the separations and stuff, that's what brings that whole thing together, in my opinion.
Flames.
First off, the flame work. This is one of the few marbling jobs that have been flames that I've seen that literally look like flames. And then tying it all together with the trims at the edges, just chef's kiss. Mwah. Like, just perfect. That is the best flames I have seen with marbling, straight out. And then Lori coming in again with a great fade, but you also have that little single thread of purple or black, I can't tell from here, on the outside, breaking it up before she gets to the wrap. And then, of course, the cute little starfish. I love that she embeds things like I do. Michael Martin, with his tiny little name. A lot of trims and doing the colors straight beside each other so it looks like a fade. I love this technique. I do this technique a lot myself. But going from yellow to orange to red and then into black, like it's very nicely done. And it's nice to see him working on rods and not just grips too, you know?
For real.
Michael Ward coming in with some nicely done little trim bands on this one. And metallic. And this one is just Trim Band City. This was an international custom rod challenge, 2 years ago?
No, last year, wasn't it?
Was it last year?
I don't remember.
I don't know. This was when I did the dragon. That was 2 years ago because I didn't do it last year. I didn't have time. But that right there, that's what, when climbing the foot and trying to keep those bands straight, that's what I freaking struggle with. I can't stand it. I get so aggravated with it. Another great example of just doing the simple single on the outside, doing all of that work for underneath the eye. The eye. Why am I saying that tonight? That is not underneath the guide ring. Talking to that person about asking about the pole in the eyes earlier today apparently stuck in my brain. Somebody flick me. Why am I saying eye? It's not an eye. It's a guide. No, because you hurt. It's a guide. Guide. Michael Ward again. That's a lot of little thread work. Nicely, cleanly done. Once again, he's done. Okay, his is. I was trying to say, did he just wrap an extra little band back there? But no, he's done the locking wrap on it.
Yeah, that's what it looks like, anyways.
More nicely done little trims and inlays, single turns, 2 turns, olive branches,
4 turns,
all kinds of stuff. More from Michael Ward. Just simple, classic, clean, nice. That's simple, clean. Couldn't ask for anything better. Michael's again. Every time I see this photo, Charlotte Hornets.
1990s Hornets.
Charlotte Hornets. And it's just because those are the colors. Legitimately were the colors of the Charlotte
I think
Hornets.
I still got a jacket from then.
You do. It's hanging up in one of the closets, I believe. Or no, we packed it away finally. Silver, the metallic silver at the edges, the bigger section in the beginning, and then like the smaller one on the inside. That's what's the true trims because it's trimming everything. But it ties it all together. It's nice. And it breaks up the color because you see he's obviously got his guide anodized to the same color that he's wrapping with. And so he needed to break up the foot or the frame from meeting the same color of the thread. We're going to have to name this one. We see it so often. But it's a great example of a bunch of different techniques put into one. The true trims are the whites at the edges. And the rest of that is just an insane amount of fades and inlays and olive branches.
I think I would charge people per thread to do that crap.
Mm-hmm. I would. That's a pain in the butt trying to keep all that stuff clean, especially on the back. Thread bobbins make it a lot easier, but that's
So, like, how many threads do you think are in that?
Hell, I'm not counting that. I mean, what?
300?
He's gone through... Look at you. You're going to make me break his wrap down. He's gone through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He has 8 colors in this. And he's done a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's done a 5-to-1 fade. I can already tell you that's a ton of singles.
Dollar per thread. Dollar per revolution. Let me put it that way.
Dollar per revolution.
Every time I turn this blank, it's $1.
That's what Mark charges per turn on his weaves. Depends on the weave. Another great example of this is grips in the little tie-off section of trims. Just putting those trims at the edges. He's got it in the middle. Got it on the edges of where his sticker goes. Trims. See, this is what you were talking about earlier.
Well, now, the only time I feel that this long of a rope is acceptable for me is on older blanks. Mm-hmm. The Honey Lamaglass and old Fenwicks and things like that when they came out, that's how they were made.
Absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's a style thing. And this one looks like it appears to go into a wrap of some sort. There's a bigger section of blue back there.
And at that point, you've got to match both sides.
Yeah. You gotta lengthen it. And like you said, ferrules are the exception because you don't really want to wrap a ferrule and then only have like a little skinny piece of a break and then go into the guide. It just doesn't look right. So... But this is what I'm talking about, the insane amount of work that's going wrapped up the foot. Like, that's so much stuff. That's a lot of thread counting.
You know what my problem with this is?
What?
A Wolfpack fan putting Tar Heel and Blue Devil colors together.
I don't even look at it like that because I don't see teams whenever I see colors. I see colors.
It's straight up Tar Heel blue with Blue Devil blue wrapped by a Wolfpack fan.
Does that really bug you?
Yeah, it does. And I don't know why.
Steve Williams coming in with the very classic and simple look for a trim band. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. That is where we all start. And that is sometimes where we want to just live in with how we are doing our trims. Another one is Steve's. Same thing. This is just a great way to break up space, and just kind of bloop, bloop, bloop. It's an old school technique, is what that is. Or the other one where they used to have one and then they would spiral the thread in between and then go back into the.
I've done that numerous times.
I tried it. It's not too bad.
So I take that back. I have done trims.
You do some stuff. You did more in your earlier years than you do now. You come in here and you just want to get the rod done.
Yeah.
Because you're like last minute. You're like, oh yeah, I'm building a rod today.
And I went out today.
And I get so mad at you. Another one is Steve's with the classic, just kind of breaking up space with the trims. Red, white, and blue. Can't go wrong. Another one. Black and silver going into the orange wrap. Steven Mendoza. So you remember my last one where I said that Instagram contributed, and then I said I don't remember his name, I just knew it was Steven. Couldn't remember his last name. It's Mendoza. I was like, what is your last name?
He's watching now, too.
I was like, what is your last name?
Just in time.
So sorry to not know your last name. We talk all the time. Great example of a lot of trims and balancing out from the inside of the guide feet towards the frame, towards the outside with the wrap. This one's in the middle of its epoxy, so don't judge his epoxy job right now. It's like on its first coat. He wanted to make sure that was known. Another one of this one. A lot of, I mean, basically like a fade happening, a blending technique, if you will. A lot of thread work, framing out that middle section. And then this guide as well. All metallic. I don't know how you guys do it. I get so mad at metallic. But trims on the outside going into the main, what you gotta call that, old school gold.
Old gold.
Old gold. That's like the color of, what are those reels? The
Internationals?
Yeah. Trinity Veteran Rods doing a solid white with just blue for the edges. And instead of doing a simple trim, he did the saw blades. And our last photo of the night, also by Trinity Veteran Rods, black and yellow with white breaking it up. So I guess you could technically say the whole thing's a trim because the black and yellow's equal portions. So, trims and trims and trims. 132 different versions of trims and inlays and techniques and personalities and styles and all kinds of stuff.
Most photos we've had.
It is absolutely the most photos we've had because you know how long it took me to get those photos uploaded today?
About 4 hours.
4 hours between going finding them because I would get them from different places. People send them Messenger or they send me into an Instagram or I'll get it from the Facebook post. Sometimes I get them in my email. And I know I'm having to go remember where all these photos were. But what sucks about Facebook now is that when you go to the post, you have to click on all pictures, right? All comments. And then you can't just, bump through each one. And when you back out of it, you go back to the top. And so I was dead scrolling forever. And you can't drag the cursor anymore. It goes at a snail's pace, no matter how fast you try to drag it. So I'm literally just, like my finger got tired going back and forth. And I finally got to the end and I was like, yay, I can use page to end down, Like it took 2 hours just to save all the photos. And then I had to go back and put everybody's name on the photo. So I spent all of this afternoon working on photos. But I'm glad that I said, you know what, there's so many. Probably should do that before I do some work. Because I was coming in here to cut up some EVA today and to get some grip started. But I was like, nah, that's a lot of photos. I'm not going to be able to do that in an hour.
It took 4 hours because it took me 4 hours to run errands today.
While you were gone. That's all I was working on. Like literally just saving photos and doing a slight adjustments. Like I don't usually crop photos for the most part because it just takes too long. I added another 2 hours if I tried to clean them up, But yeah, that's the most photos we've ever gotten. It's actually pretty cool. I was very excited to see that many people participating in it because even if one person was contributing 26, Abby, or or somebody, Michael Ward had a bunch in there, and like I don't mind. I don't care how many photos you want to put it because they're all different styles, So, but trims is definitely something that a lot of people don't really know where to start with. And hopefully you can look through those photos and kind of get inspired to try different techniques. And, being able to start that first trim at the beginning of the foot, that's a pull-through thing. I've talked about it a lot after I figured it out because I went to Mark's house going, how do they do the single thread on the beginning of the guide foot? Because I can't lock it in and I go to start the other one. The other one's falling off and I can't figure out how to do it. I can't even do it with 5 turns. It's still falling off. And he's like, it's simple. It's a pull-through. And I'm like, what do you mean it's a pull-through? And basically, however many colors that you want to put in, let's say you want to put 2 colors in. If your main thread, your wrap on your guide foot is just going to be one solid color of black, right? You're going to start, but you're not going to turn. You're just going to go ahead and have it like taped down. And then you're going to inlay, you're going to put your 2 different colors flat. I tape mine so they stay out of the way. You can also put them on a thread bobbin. Hook it on there and you don't have to worry about it getting twisted and everything. And then you're going to put pull-throughs pulling it this way underneath the foot or the main wrap, and you'll secure your main thread. Those colors will be locked in. You do however many turns you want to do, whether it's 1, 2, 5, wrap it around, pull that color underneath the main one, you have your first band, and then repeat. It's simple.
Or
until you don't know what it is.
On YouTube of how to do a single and take it from there.
I do have videos of it everywhere. There's on TikTok and YouTube. I think, do I have one on YouTube?
Yeah.
I do. Okay.
It's actually like one of your most watched videos.
I will. A lot of the fire fade, which I need to update, has been one of the ones. Anyways, I got videos floating around. If it's not there, I'll go check. But let me write that down. If it's not there, I'll make sure I put one of my TikToks where I was explaining it on there. But once you know how to do it, it is easy. But trying to figure out how to do it when you don't have any experience, your brain's going, how do I do that? How are all these people doing these singles? And like looking at one that Michael Ward did with all those single. I know how to do it. I don't want to do it because I know how much work's involved in it, and I don't have the patience for that kind of stuff. I don't know what it is about guide wraps, but guide wraps piss me off 110% all the time. Can't stand them. Do not want anything to do with them. So most of the time, I usually do clean, simple. Sometimes I'll get a little crazy like I did on the sugar skulls, but even that I hated. So there was like it would take me a day to get through one guide wrap because I would be so mad at myself for coming up with that design. And Wes can attest that it did take me a day. It took me like 7 days to wrap all the guides.
So tonight's product of the night is going to be a basics supply kit. So you get Pro Paste. You can select the sizes that you want, either a 2 ounce, 4 ounce, or 8 ounce. And it's got Pro Coat rod building epoxy with 2 ounce, 4 ounce, or 8 ounce. Then you get mixing cups and sticks, polymer tip cement, which is tip top cement, guide foot adhesive, masking tape, and you get 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch, which the 1/4 inch we use a lot of it.
I don't. You do.
I do.
I don't use it.
The white China marker, which if you get one of those, shove it in a pencil sharpener.
Yeah, don't peel it.
Just put it in a pencil sharpener and be done with it. Get one of the ones that have the big fat holes in it and use the pencil sharpener.
It's for crayons is what that one is.
Crayon sharpener. There you go. And then single edge razor blades. This is retailing for, I think, right now it's like $43 for all of this. But if you're thinking about getting into rod building, this would be a very good just, hey, I need all the supplies to be able to build or repair. Or if you're in a pinch and you just need a set of everything, easy to order.
Bam, bam, thank you, ma'am. And it saves money because if you bought everything separately, brushes are also included in that.
Yes.
But, it saves a lot of money. It's somewhere between 40 or 60, actually. I don't remember the price.
Yeah, it depends on the sizes that you get, as far as like the epoxy and the paste and all that. But
and, for those that are looking for Christmas presents for rod builders, they're going to need all that stuff anyways. It'd be actually a great thing to get for Christmas, and Christmas is coming up.
Yep.
Or for anybody starting in
my
the rod
first
building.
thoughts is like somebody wanting to get into it, or if you need to do repairs and you don't want to build rods, but you want to repair your own.
It's a great kit.
It's got everything in it to repair rods, other than thread. And there's thread kits for that. So
yeah, they got all kinds of kits coming out between guide kits, handle kits, now these starter kits and the equipment kits and stuff. Like it's actually going to make like just assembling all of the things that you need easy. And then once you get to use the products, then you can pick and choose. Like maybe you don't like how this is performing, maybe you want to try something else, or you just want to see what else is out there. Then you can start to figure out what works the best for you. And take a minute and thank our sponsors, Foundation Outdoor Group, for this amazing year. I will say, we'll take this time during the sponsors. There's a new product that's going to be launching on the 18th. I can't tell you what it is.
Nice.
I can't tell you anything else about it, but I can tell you that the podcast will be coming out about the same day that is happening. So kind of be paying attention to Mudhole on the 18th and see what this brand new item is. I promise you're going to like it.
I can tell you, I got to play with it. It's nice.
I can't wait to build with it. That's all I want to say. The other thing I want to do is to also let anybody know that if there is, I haven't got a chance to check, but if there's any classes or spots available for the advanced class, there's 6 spots left. Six spots left for January. Now, I know it's going to be tight if you're planning on going to the expo because it's going to be tight for us as well, but those advanced classes are really awesome. There's a lot of great conversations and seminars, and Wes gets to teach this year. I've drug him into the marbling class.
I was coerced.
I just told him he was doing it.
I was coerced.
I drug him in.
This.
So he's going to be teaching marbling, and I'm going to be teaching 2 different classes on grips and 2 different classes on thread. Thread still to be determined. I kind of have an idea what I'm doing for the grip stuff. And then at the expo, the International Custom Rod Building Expo, Mudhole Foundation Outdoor Group is hosting the Rod Building Challenge. And if you haven't got your blanks yet, you need to get your blanks because those blanks have to be turned in by the time at the expo. If you're coming. If you're not coming to the expo, you have until the 3rd of February to get it to them. You have to ship it to them, and then they'll take it. But we've got to get started. Wes is building this year, and I'm building a separate one, which obviously he'll get his knocked out in a day, and mine will take up until probably the time we leave. But
mine will take about a weekend.
Yeah. And, it's going to be awesome. So, a lot of really fun things to look out for with stuff that's going on with Mudhole, and just kind of keep up to date with their page, and obviously check out the Mudhole Live that's coming up as well. So, trim bands are something that I personally like to frame most of the work that I do. A lot of times I have them on the edges of whatever my tie-offs or my guide wraps are going to be, and it kind of just ties everything in from the wrap colors into the tie-offs into the guide wraps, along with the grips that I do. If I have like inlays that I'm putting into it or a pattern that I'm using on it, I usually incorporate some sort of trim at the edge that kind of blends everything together. It's what I keep saying this all night, but it's the framework. It literally frames. It's like if you look at your wrap, let's use a wrap for instance, or a decorative grip, you look at that as your artwork, right? Because it is. You got to put it in a frame. So we got to put it with trims. And that's kind of how I see it. Like, they're necessary to kind of frame it out. And yes, you can be just like Wes and just do one color and it be done. And a lot of times, like, I'm going to do that with the Stormtrooper rod. There's no reason to go crazy with it. Just do black and white because that's what it is. Mm-hmm. It's going to have black guide wraps. Easy peasy. And you don't always have to trim it out, but a lot of times just adding that one extra color, either it's a metallic silver or gold, or you're putting just one little color at the end of it, like a red and black, makes it look 10 times better. So knowing how to do the pull through technique, seeing all these photos for inspiration, definitely look into trying out some different techniques for putting inlays and stuff into the wraps. And also, I know what you're doing with your grips and stuff. Now you got me started. Stop it. And things with the cork, like with Lori with her G10, which I've worked with G10 before. It's brutal. You need the carbide, right? Carbide tips in order to turn that stuff. It's vicious. So make sure you have the right tools before you start buying stuff for the projects, because I messed up and didn't get all the right stuff I needed before I needed it, and we had to we had to make multiple trips for that one set of grips that I was like, I'm putting G10 into it, and then it was like, oh, I don't have any way to glue it.
I was like, you got carbide tips?
Don't have any way to turn it. So adding those little things. Poker chips are a great thing to add in there. Brass copper sheets. There's a bunch of like sheets that you can buy that are metal that's soft enough to turn, and just stack them into your grips. There's a bunch of different things that we can look into to create trims that aren't necessarily using the same thing. Like if you had EVA, obviously I wouldn't put G10 with EVA, but if you had like wood, you can use G10, fiberglass, or something like that. If you got acrylic, blah, 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 blah. Mix it back and forth. But thanks for hanging out with us tonight. I hope you got inspired to try something, and y'all have a great night, and we'll talk later. Bye.